Eagles fans, welcome into the Postgame Show presented by Ricoh. I'm Gabriella DiGiovanni, welcoming in Fran Duffy here across the NovaCare Complex. Fran, the Eagles made it to the Super Wild Card weekend. A lot of miscues, self-inflicted wounds as they played 4 quarters in Tampa Bay, obviously not going their way. We knew it was going to be a challenge, but the 2021 campaign ends today.
Yeah, and obviously a tough loss to swallow as we sit here today, right? All right, here today, this loss hurts. Tomorrow, this loss will hurt. This week, this loss is going to hurt. You can't go into the defending Super Bowl champion's house going up against the greatest quarterback of all time, turn the ball over the way that the Eagles did a couple times in their own territory, have the amount of penalties that the Eagles had, and expect to come away with a victory. It was on both sides of the football. You throw special teams in there as well. Just not enough to be able to come up with a win here against Tampa Bay Bucs.
A lot to digest from all 3 sides of the football, of course. Like you said, you can't expect to go into the defending Super Bowl champion's house and expect it to be easy, especially when you're up against arguably the best quarterback of all time. Let's start with the offensive side of the football. We expected to see the run game play that they've played the back half of this season. It's been lethal, as we know. They didn't break 100 yards on the ground today. Obviously something we're not used to seeing, but the trouble then came in how do they adjust when they couldn't get the ball going on the ground.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me this morning, Ella, that the Eagles were going to have 3 first downs rushing the football, I would have said that's probably not a formula for being able to come away with a victory. They just could not get things going on the ground. How often did we talk about, hey, this team is rushing 175, 185, 205 yards rushing on the ground over the last couple of months? Well, to not break the century mark here against a very good Tampa Bay front, but a front that had given up a bunch of explosive runs, the quarterback run element just never felt like it was all the way there today. A couple of TFLs against Jalen Hurts, a couple of them on 3rd down, where we've seen some explosive runs from the Eagles in the past. They just did not have the answers for what Tampa Bay brought to the table here in this one.
And then just as that graphic showed us, 3 turnovers, of course, 2 interceptions from Jalen Hurts, and then a fumble from Jalen Reagor on special teams. The problem here is when you turn the football over and you give it back to Tom Brady, he will absolutely capitalize, and that's exactly what happened here today.
Yeah, I mean, you can't give Tom Brady free possessions, and that's exactly what happened. This was a 17-point ball game, early 3rd quarter, and after that Jalen Reagor fumble in plus territory, the Bucs get the ball at the 48-yard line, the Eagles' 48-yard line. They go down and they score. They get an next play on the very first play, 22-yard completion to Giovanni Bernard, Ella. And to me, that was what swung it. That was the longest play for the Bucs to that point in this game. A 22-yard completion on a screen. And then after that, the floodgates kind of open. They go down, they score a touchdown. Then the interception on the ensuing drive. They get the ball on the Eagles' 36-yard line this time. 1 play and out. That one goes to Mike Evans off play action. The Bucs get into the end zone again, and now it's 31-0. Just like that, the game is completely out of reach for this Eagles team. And the turnovers, a big reason why.
Big storyline this week, of course, was that these are 2 different teams facing each other in the postseason than did in Week 6. And that's exactly right. Of course, the Eagles hadn't hit their stride yet in the run game. They were without Dallas Goedert, without Lane Johnson. Jordan Mailata played right tackle that day, coming off of a knee injury. And then, of course, from the Tampa Bay side of things, Gronk didn't play that game. They had Chris Godwin, and they had Antonio Brown. So, sure, on paper, it did look like 2 very different teams. Of course, Leonard Fournette out today as well. But at the end of the day, that first half really reminded me of the Eagles in the beginning of this season, right? A lot of penalties, which was something the Eagles really cleaned up in the second half of this season. And the run game couldn't get going. However, then when they try to rely on the passing game, they really struggled.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the penalties. That was something that was a huge bugaboo for this Eagles team on both sides of the football in the first month and a half, right? We saw a bunch of penalties, sometimes getting into the double digits. Now, if you look at this game, you look at a couple of those penalties, you're an Eagles fan, you say, should that flag have been called? Should that one have been picked up?
Absolutely.
At the end of the day, those penalties were called, and they brought big plays back for this Eagles offense. They kept drives alive for this Bucs offense, right? So no matter how you slice it, you had these errors that the team just could not overcome, too many of them, and that's exactly what you don't want against Tom Brady and against Bruce Arians, Todd Bowles, that entire group.
And when you look at the evolution of this Eagles team throughout the season, of course, we talk about that 2-5 start. To even make the playoffs, of course, is a huge feat. Of course, for Nick Sirianni as a head coach and Jalen Hurts as a first-time starting quarterback in the league, it's been quite an evolution, quite a development. But I think now line that started in 2021 that's going to carry into 2022 is the development of that passing game. You see Devontae Smith was targeted just twice in that first half. So how can they start to incorporate, your first-round draft pick Devontae Smith into this game plan a little bit more and build on the development, of course, of Dallas Goddard, who has really taken the reins of the tight end position in the second half of the season?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that we'll continue to watch and we'll continue to talk about throughout the course of this offseason, because what did we see from this Eagles offense over the last couple of months? Obviously, it was a run-focused attack. That's what the strength of this offense was. It was focused around the offensive line and what they could do at the point of attack. Is that going to continue into 2022? And you look at this offensive line, a lot of these key pieces are all coming back for 2022.
Yep. It
would stand to reason that that's still going to be the strength of this offense. And so then it becomes, how do you continue to grow that? Do you continue to add to the run game? Do you continue to add to the pass game, both conceptually and from a personnel standpoint? I think there's a lot that we can talk about here in this show, but then also just over these next few months. Obviously a very important offseason, but I think just for the focus of this game, look, the Dallas Goedert was able to come through with a number of big plays in the passing game. The Eagles just could not hook up enough with Devontae Smith. He made that great catch towards the end of the game in the end zone on the two-point conversion play, but just not enough to be able to make some waves here against the Bucs. And a big part of that too, Ella, you had 3 possessions to start the game, just 10 plays. And we talked about this early on in this season when the Eagles just could not get things going offensively. If you're not running a lot of plays, well, that's when you start talking about, how come this guy's not getting the ball? How come that guy's not getting the ball? How come this guy's not getting enough carries? Well, you have 3 drives and you have 10 plays. There's only so many passes that can go around. There's only so many ball carriers that can be targeted, right? So at the end of the day, the Eagles just were not efficient enough on offense. They did not move the chains enough, especially early on in this game. And then you get the Bucs out to an early lead, and it was just really tough sledding from that point on.
And you really needed the Eagles offense to stay on the field because when Tom Brady has the ball, they can really extend drives. A few of the opening drives were over 10 plays. Yep. They were over 75 yards. And so that defense is going to get gassed. And before we start talking about, I think, a successful defensive performance today, the offense needed to eat some of that clock. And after that first quarter, Tampa Bay was on the field for over 10 minutes. The Eagles offense under 5. So when you're talking about 4 quarters of football in a playoff situation, you're on the road. You put the defense on that field for that long against Tom Brady, they're going to be gassed.
Yeah, I mean, that's when you start talking about complementary football, and it's not just run game, pass game, but it's offense, defense. And so when you look at the way that the Eagles defense came into this game, and I know a lot of people are going to look at the score and they're going to be upset about the defensive performance. And you can be to a certain extent. What I would say is, look at if you just look at it just from a drive-by-drive standpoint, the Bucs started off this game, they score 17 points. 2 of those first 3 drives go for 10-plus plays, as you mentioned. But after that point, going into halftime and even coming out of the locker room, the Eagles had 5 3-and-outs. Right? I mean, this is going up against the greatest quarterback of all time. You're going up against Tom Brady. The defense was able to find ways to get off the field. Now, you take advantage of some injuries along that offensive front for Tampa Bay, no question. But I think at the end of the day, you look at what the defense did. There were some good things that they did here in this game to keep the Eagles close, to keep them within striking distance. But those turnovers, early third quarter, just too much. And they could not overcome that. You give those short fields to this Tampa Bay offense in plus territory, and they were able to capitalize.
The way Tampa Bay played in the first half, it's amazing they held them to just 17 points when you really look at the performance. Of course, losing Josh Sweat unexpectedly before the game today was huge. Ryan Kerrigan, of course, stepped up in his absence, and then you lose TJ Edwards, who was your team's leading tackler this season, okay? Alex Singleton, again, had to step up in his absence, but those are 2 huge losses on the defensive side of the ball. So when you remove those key players, of course, adjustments are going to have to happen, and Tom Brady is just naturally going to make drives look easy. Not all the time, but he knows how to string together a drive better than any quarterback in the NFL. And you can't forget, 34 wins. This is his 35th playoff win of his career. He's been here, done this. And so you can't forget that when he's going up against a team who hasn't been here, done this. There's over 20 Eagles players who are active today who have never seen postseason play. So you give the defense a lot of credit, but it came to a point where there's only so much they can do.
Yeah, and certainly that side of the ball, it's not like they had a perfect outing, right? There are going to be plays that when they go back and watch the film tonight, when they go back and watch the film tomorrow, they're going to say, hey, I would like to have this play back. I would like to have this call back, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, I thought that they did an admirable job going up against Tom Brady and this passing attack. 17 points in the first half, that's fine. You obviously it's not ideal, but I think at the end of the day, you're looking at how many times were they able to get the stop. I just think from a turnover standpoint, 1 on special teams and 2 on offense, it was just too much for them to overcome. You mentioned the injury to Josh Sweat. This is a player that was their best pass rusher over the last month and change, not just from a sack standpoint, but from a pressure standpoint with what he did off the edge. And so not having him in this game, the spotlight was put on Milton Williams. It was put on Ryan Kerrigan. Kerrigan had his most productive day of the season. I thought Milton Williams was a bright spot. And once again, that has been a theme here down the stretch over the last month and a half especially, looking at what the rookie third-round pick has been. And honestly, that's a bright spot. Going into the offseason, if you're an Eagles fan, you say, what do I take away from this game? And from this season, I think a big thing is looking at this rookie class. And you saw Kenny Gainwell. He had a couple highlights here today. But I think you look at Devontae Smith, you look at Landon Dickerson and Milton Williams, those first, second, third-round picks from the spring. All 3 of those guys have done some really good things this season as a rookie. And now you can try and project those guys moving forward into year 2.
And specifically talk about Landon Dickerson, who stepped up in a big way. Anytime an offensive lineman goes down, it is a huge loss, but especially this offensive line, who has been so successful in Philadelphia for so many years. Losing guys like Brandon Brooks and Isaac Seumalo is not easy, right? Even Jordan Mailata missed a few weeks. Lane Johnson missed a few weeks. The way that this offensive line has been able to assemble, there's been so many different offensive line combinations. We talk about Jeff Stoutland week in and week out. But even today, seeing this performance, they gave Jalen Hurts time. And so when you talk about a guy like Landon Dickerson, who is truly a rookie, he didn't really have much time in training camp. To see the promise and the future in a guy like Landon Dickerson is great for this Eagles offense moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, Landon Dickerson, especially with his versatility, what he can do in both the run game and pass game, the number of positions he can line up, that is certainly going to be important for this offense moving forward. And again, going back to that discussion, big picture going into the offseason, what is this offense going to look like in 2022? How much of it is going to be focused, once again, on the run game versus the pass game? How do you improve in those areas of the pass game? It's going to be something we'll be talking about a lot. I know I will be on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, on the Journey to the Draft podcast, which we'll be doing all throughout the course of the offseason. But I think that there's plenty to discuss from this Eagles, from what they did this season. Obviously, this game, I know it stings, right? It's going to here for the foreseeable future. But still, some things to take away to try and just note down going into the offseason.
And I think the difference in the ending to 2021 there are things that are known going into 2022. There were a lot of unknowns at the end of the 2020 season. And, Devontae Smith, like you said, he's a rookie. Jordan Mailata got a contract extension. Landon Dickerson is a rookie. Like, there's pieces to the puzzle that are known. We know that these guys can perform at a very high level. We've seen it time and time again this season. Like you said, unfortunately, it did end the way it did today. But, of course, there are definitely pieces to this puzzle on both the offense and defensive side of the ball that bring a lot of promise to the Eagles moving forward.
Yeah, I think that, look, going up against the defending Super Bowl champs, we've mentioned it already a couple times, you couldn't afford to go in and make too many mistakes. That said, when you are playing with a young team, and we know this is a team that they've been in big games, right? There are a lot of players that either A, were on the Super Bowl team in 2017 or had played in big games in college. At the end of the day, it's still a young team. You mentioned some of the young pieces on both sides of the football, guys that are playing in their first meaningful playoff action. Those things are going to happen. That said, if you're just looking at in the micro in this moment at what happened here today, it was those mistakes that had a big hand in what happened here in this defeat.
Dallas Goedert being one of those guys who actually is not unfamiliar with the playoffs. This was his third playoff appearance in 4 seasons. Today, 6 receptions, 92 yards. And we've talked about his development throughout the season. Of course, without Zach Ertz here in Philadelphia anymore, and the way Dallas has really just emerged. He kind of took that tight end 1 position and ran with it, no pun intended. But looking forward to seeing his development once he starts the 2022 campaign as the #1 guy here in Philadelphia. Another guy, a known piece to this puzzle in 2022 after he also got that contract extension earlier in the year.
Ella, I would make the argument that he is a top 5 tight end in the NFL at this point. When you look at his versatile skill set, what he does in both the run game and the pass game, and it's not just, he's a reliable pass catcher over the middle. You're talking about a player at that position that can impact all 3 levels of the defense while still being a plus blocker in the run game and pass game. Those don't grow on trees. There aren't a lot of those guys in the NFL. And so to me, that is something that you can go into 2022 and say that is a known quantity for this Eagles offense. And they've done a really good job of leveraging his strengths in the run game and the pass game. This season, my guess is that will continue. We'll just get to see it over a 17-game schedule here next fall.
And look at Tampa Bay's defense. What was part of their game plan? Dallas Goedert was in double coverage all the time. So obviously they view him as an asset to the Eagles offense, just as the Eagles view him as an asset. Knowing that he could be a threat in the Eagles passing game, he was double covered all over the place today.
He was, and I think that that's a tribute to him and knowing his role in the offense and how important he is for quarterback Jalen Hurts. He has been his go-to target here over the last month and change, and that's something I think, again, that I think you can count on continuing moving into next fall.
And then, of course, on the defensive side of the ball, you got to talk about Dallas Goedert's roommate, Avonte Maddox. Another known piece to the puzzle. Of course, him signing his contract extension this season as well. Quieter day for Avonte Maddox today. Definitely a part of the defense's success, but we've seen Avonte Maddox really shine this season.
Yeah, I think, look, today was a little bit rough going up against Mike Evans at times in the slot, and we talked this week on Eagles Game Plan about how that would be a possibility. Mike Evans sliding inside, Rob Gronkowski sliding outside. That is something that the Bucs did. They had some success doing it throughout the course of the afternoon. The one touchdown he had on that 36-yarder, that came with Mike Evans in the slot. So that is something that we did see going up against Avonte Maddox. That's going to be a tough matchup from a size standpoint, right? But I think when you look at Avonte Maddox, what we saw, and really it all kind of started for me, Ella, that Tampa Bay game in Week 6, that was a turning point, I thought, for Avonte Maddox. And in that game, that Thursday night, I thought Avonte had a really strong game. And then from that point forward, we really started to see him get acclimated into this defense. It's a huge role. When you play a lot of zone coverage, that nickel corner is going to be asked to do a lot of different things underneath. And it's not just from a matchup standpoint, but you've got to be able to defend the run. You're going to blitz at times. You're going to play in the middle of the field. You're going to play towards the sideline. You're going to do a lot of different things. And I thought Avonte Maddox, he proved that he could be the starting nickel corner. That's why they gave him that contract extension. Because clearly, he is viewed as a piece that you can work with in this defense moving forward.
Absolutely. And when you remove T.J. Edwards from the equation,
yeah,
right, that puts more pressure on a guy like Avonte Maddox because you are relieving kind of that intermediate area when your leading tackler is now out of the game. So Avonte Maddox, I think, did a good job today adjusting on what the Bucs were giving him from an offensive standpoint. But, you know, all this week, the questions swirling were, how have the Bucs adjusted without Chris Godwin? Even Bruce Arians on a call earlier in the week said, you know, I don't have another Chris Godwin on the roster, but he has found ways to just use other players in his place. No one's going to play a game like Chris Godwin. Bruce Arians is correct. But they've done such a good job in utilizing who they have, reworking their personnel to kind of make up for his absence, and we saw that today.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think when you look at this offense, that's one of the things that makes them so good. There's a reason why they were the most explosive offense in football here this season, why they were one of the most efficient offenses a year ago when they went on their run to the Super Bowl. So this was a tough matchup coming into this game for the Eagles. And again, you lose T.J. Edwards. What does that mean in the second half? Well, they played a lot more dime. They played with more safeties on the field, 3 safeties, Marcus Epps, Rodney McLeod, Anthony Harris, all playing a significant amount of snaps. When Tampa Bay decided they were going to run the ball more, Sean Bradley, a young veteran, a second-year player, he had to come into the game, right, because of injuries at other linebacker spots. And so I think when you look at that injury to T.J. Edwards, that was certainly important down the stretch here in the second half for this Eagles defense.
And we talk about going into 2022 again. I think we sometimes forget that the Eagles lost Brandon Graham at the beginning of the season. It's a huge loss, and we've kind of seen why it's been such a tough loss in areas week in and week out. Of course, you have Fletcher Cox, you have Javon Hargrave. It was a huge opportunity this season for Milton Williams to really grow. We talk about Josh Sweat. Jannard Avery has shown glimpses. Derek Barnett has had a game or two. It's been a successful effort from the D-line. A lot of these games have come down to who can win it in the trenches, and we've seen the Eagles' defensive line dominate at times. But you have to remember, losing a player like Brandon Graham is a big hit, even when you're talking about postseason football, and he's been out of it for several weeks.
Yeah, that was a huge hit early on this season. It did turn the spotlight a little bit onto guys like Josh Sweat and Milton Williams. Those were the two guys that had to take up that mantle for Brandon Graham, because Brandon Graham, he was a 3-down player for the Eagles defensive line. Coming into the season, that was the plan, was that, hey, early downs, he's going to have that ability. He can line up inside or outside, and then when it's time to rush the passer, again, he could do a little bit of both. Now, when he gets injured, well, what happens? You're going to lean a little bit more into number 94 and a little bit into number 93. Both those guys, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, to me, passed that test with flying colors. And so now you're going into the offseason. Number one, you're getting Brandon Graham back for next year, and you know you have that veteran presence. You know you've got Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave, right? You've got some of those key pieces. But then to also have Josh Sweat, who earned that contract extension here this late this season. Then you get into Milton Williams, what he can be down the road. That just, again, kind of speaks to the strength that the Eagles have along the lines of scrimmage, certainly on the offensive side, but on the defensive side as well.
And you talk about that veteran presence. Of course, that's where Brandon Graham is such a huge contributor to this football team as well, is in the locker room. His presence and his personality is second to none when it comes to this football team, right? But when you think about preparing a football team for a postseason run, like we've been saying all day now against the defending Super Bowl champions, it's guys like Brandon Graham that a team really relies on for experience. You know, Jason Kelce was asked about how he's been preparing younger players to play all week. And he was referencing things that Chris Long and Malcolm Jenkins told him back in 2017 that he was passing on to younger players. So when you lose a presence like Brandon Graham, that does come into play when you are prepping such a young team for a postseason run. Taking away those key players, it is a bigger opportunity for guys like Jason Kelce, Rodney McLeod to prepare the team moving into the postseason without a personality like Brandon Graham.
Yeah, I think the big thing is you hope that this young team, that they learned from today, right? That they learned from this, they move forward into the offseason with those lessons learned.
All right, well, we're going to hear from Coach Sirianni right now at the podium.
We saw some uncharacteristic mistakes and some characteristics. Do you think some guys let the moment get to them?
You know, we know that you can't make mistakes like that in the playoffs against a really good football team, and we did. I don't want to say the moment got too big for him. I just think we made some mistakes. Coaching, it always starts with me as a coach. There were some coaching mistakes, and you know there's going to be guys that are going to want some plays back out there. But I didn't feel and I didn't sense for a moment that the moment was too big for him. It was a great atmosphere here. But I never felt that out there. We just didn't make some plays, and we didn't coach good enough at the end of the day.
What mistakes were the coaching mistakes?
Well, again, anytime their defense is, or pardon me, they score 17 points early on, and the offense has 0 points. You're not putting your guys in position to play, so position to make plays. So. You know, we had to do a better job of that. I thought the defensive game plan for Tampa was pretty good with some of the run blitzes they had on, and there were some things that you know we would like to have some more runs early on, but you know you have to adjust to the way they're blitzing things off the edge, and some of the answers sometimes is a spit a look out off to the side. I think there's probably 4 or 5. Runs that we ended up getting out of, and they did a good job. And we spit it out to the perimeter because of their run blitz, and then they did a good job of rallying to it. And you know, so I take that responsibility. We weren't good enough with our answers against some of the run blitzes.
Jalen had today, and what did you make of his performance?
I'm sorry, I missed that first part.
What are some of the issues Jalen Hurts had today, and what did you make of his performance?
You know, obviously I need to go back and watch the tape. Again, we weren't as crisp as we needed to be on offense. I thought there were some good zone read things that he did and read it pretty well. You know, a couple of the early things that happened, you know, like some of the early third downs weren't necessarily his fault of what happened. Again, I'll have to watch the tape through it. It's not going to come out as his best graded game, and it's not going to come out as a lot of our guys' best graded games. So I'll have to watch the tape to get further answers for you. But again, just not a crisp game, and that always starts with me as the head coach, and then another quarterback. We're always going to take responsibility for that.
Emotions in the locker room after the game. It was your first playoff as head coach. It was Jalen's first playoff as quarterback. How much does this hurt? And what does it feel?
Yeah, it definitely hurts because the goal is never just to get to the playoffs. The goal is to get in and do some damage in there. And so that was everybody's mindset. You know, we were confident coming in, and that was our mindset that we were going to do that. And whenever it doesn't go as planned and the season ends, you know, in playoffs it's even harder because then it's just over, right? It's going to hurt. But I just think it, you know. I've always appreciated about the football season that it's a journey, and you gotta appreciate the journey that you went through together as a football team. The meetings, the practices, the training camp, the training camp practices, the training camp up in New York against the Jets, just all the things that built us into the team the 2021 Eagles. And so, you get sad because, and you feel that it's sad because it's over, right? You're so happy that it happened and the journey happened and the relationships that were built, but it hurts and it stings because that journey of the 2021 Eagles is over, and that team will never be the same again, right? There'll be changes, right? Never does a team look exactly the same as it did the year before. And so I just think it's a special group of guys. And so you're sad because the journey's over, and hopefully you get as many of those special guys back that you can, because the whole group's special. I said to the guys that just the foundation, when I came in, when we stepped in here, the foundation was very solid to begin with, and we just continue to grow it. And so I'm grateful for that. And it'll just be hard that we're not game planning next week with our game plan and our offense and defensive game plans, and we're not meeting with the guys, and so that's what hurts and that's what stings about it.
It took a while for you to get Devontae involved offensively. Was that something Tampa was doing, or if not, what went into that?
Well, early on, again, you always want to get your playmakers going as early as you can. But again, the defense dictates some of that, and the amount of plays we had dictates some of that. We really didn't have a good drive until was it our third or fourth drive? Maybe our fourth drive, where it was a sustained drive. But no doubt, I mean, that's my job to get Devontae going earlier because he's a heck of a football player. And of course, we want to get him going, but there's different things that play into that. But I'll accept that. It starts with me, regardless of how the drives are going. But so definitely got to get him going earlier, and he wasn't a part of it early. There were some things called to him in the defense, early on. The defense forced the ball to go somewhere else. So you want to get them going, but you also don't want to force it to what they're doing.
What happened on Jalen Reagor's muff punt, and did you consider not putting him back out there?
Well, the muff punt right there, the wind was messed with him a little bit earlier in the game. And it looked like he came up. Again, I'll have to look at the tape exactly what happened, and I'm going to the defense to try to help get that thing going. So I didn't have a chance to talk to Clay about it. Obviously, I saw it. Just looked like he misjudged it and came back. Sure, like whenever you have a mistake or something like that, that's a big mistake. You always are going to be like, hey, what's the next approach? Does Greg Ward go back there? Well, Greg Ward had back spasms and he was out, and so we would have explored that option. He got another opportunity, made a good play, but then they made a mistake again on that, and he's going to want those plays back. We'll get back to the drawing board and fix those things. But as far as why we stayed with Jalen, I'm glad he made a play after that. Again, not happy with the one that happened after the play that he made, but it was more so about Greg being out.
When you get down early, obviously 2 possessions, it's never good. You never want to be down those 2 possessions. But the way you built this offense, particularly, how much stress does that put on you to be in that situation?
I think it would create. I know what you're getting at there with, like, as far as being a run first team, it's hard to be down 17 points. But I think what you've seen from our offense the entire year is that we are an explosive offense, even though we're a run first offense. And so I didn't feel the stress until we went down, maybe 24. I felt like we could play, our game still, where we were mixing it, maybe passing it just a little bit more. But the explosive plays weren't there today. Again, anytime the explosive plays aren't there, I'm always going to put myself in that situation first. I'll have to see the numbers of what we were, but some of our explosive plays came on some, when we were down and they were playing a little bit softer. But I didn't feel that press until we were down maybe 24-0.
Bigger picture, how do you walk away feeling about Jalen Hurts?
Again, we're all going to say for today's game, he didn't play his best game, as we all know. but you don't take the body of work that he had for 17 weeks, and I know he didn't play in 2 games, so 15 weeks, and say you put everything on this game, right? And I know we're all judged on the last game that we played. I understand that. I fully get that. But I felt really, I felt like Jalen grew throughout the year. And he got better as a passer. He got better as a reading the defenses, getting the ball to the right place. He developed so much in his ability to extend plays, of not only making plays with his feet but also making plays downfield on the scramble. I know the one today. He scrambled and threw the interception. He had some other good scrambles that were good plays though as well. So I feel really good with what we have in place right here at the quarterback position. He played. I thought he had a great year, and he came a long way. And that's what I expect from Jalen, just because of the type of football character he has, the type of character he has, the toughness that he has, the love for football that he has. I can't say enough good things about Jalen the player, the person, and the player. And so I feel good about him. I know, again, this was the game that none of us are going to be satisfied with. Me, him, multiple guys on that football team. But I'm really pleased with how he came along this year and the leader he is on this football team.
You got 2 more guys. Did you also get a sense about being in the playoffs, the difference between falling behind really against a team like the Buccaneers as opposed to maybe the Giants or Washington?
Yeah, you never want to start slow, regardless of who you're playing, because in this league anybody can beat you at any time. And but there's less margin of error in the playoffs. We that is something that we definitely talked about. That the assignment and the technique that happened. Those are important no matter what game 1 through 17. The assignment technique's super important. But it becomes even more important, when the playoffs come. And so it's just the mistakes get amplified. You can't turn the ball over 3 times like we did today and beat a quarterback or a team, a quarterback like Tom Brady, or a team like the Tampa Bay Bucks, or a coach like Coach Arians, or a coach like Todd Bowles. You can't do that. And so those mistakes just get amplified as you get into this style of football.
Nick, when this defense struggles, it typically struggles for the same reasons, opposing quarterback aside. Why do you think that is?
Well, again, I think that we definitely got better in as far as going through, challenging a little bit more, getting our rush home a little bit more, pressuring a little bit more. I think the defensive coaches made good adjustments as the year went on, so it wasn't the same. It may have been, some quarterback completion percentages as the year went on, but it's not like it was against the same bullets that we were flying at him, at those quarterbacks. And so we definitely, Coach Gannon and I, we've talked through it, being where we were in completion percentage, that doesn't sit well with us. We played some good quarterbacks too, but again, it should never be that high. It's not our standard of what we want it to look like. But credit to Tom Brady, and he's seen everything that you could imagine, and he was on it today.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks everybody.
That was head coach Nick Sirianni for the last time post-game for the 2021 season. Fran, of course, he said this was not Jalen Hurts' best game. I think that's pretty obvious, and quarterbacks are going to have good and bad games. Unfortunately, his bad game came in the first round of the postseason, but he was begging and urging people to really look at Jalen's whole body of work. You look at week 1 through what he's played through, what Jalen Hurts has been up against, battling some injury, and it is a body of work worth noting, improvement, development, and growth.
No question. It's obviously a big thing as we hear Alex Singleton at the podium.
Thank you. Yep.
Hey, Alex. Obviously, Tom Brady, you draw in quarterback, but when you guys have played quarterbacks at that upper echelon, you seem to struggle in coverage. Why do you think that is?
Tom Brady today, he knows where to go with the ball. I think, we in certain situations, we just got to know, where the hole is and, stay in that. I think, we had the right game plan to come out and, play with them. And, we just, the first thing I said this week is, we need to, get after the ball and get takeaways and be in the right spots. And when we're not and they're clicking, I mean, it's hard to beat him when he's on in a game.
As a special teams guy and captain, how much does it hurt it when you guys have mistakes in that department?
Yeah, I think special teams. It's kind of like the O-line. Nobody notices unless you're making mistakes. I think you can obviously have if you have touchdown returns or big returns in a game, it's more noticed. But yeah, every guy, that's how I found a job in this league. A lot of guys on this team, that's how you find a job in this league. Guys across the league, and so you want to go out there and give it your all. And obviously, certain plays here and there, just didn't go our way today.
Alex, can we talk about the journey how do you come back?
Yeah, I love every guy in that room. I knew I was going to be here, before obviously the staff and everything that changed and all that stuff. And I think, we really came together. I think obviously, the core guys, those, core captains and leaders were guys that were here, and we knew with everything that was going to be new, we had to build. And it was, it wasn't just going to click week one. We weren't just going to, I guess week one it did click, but week 2, 3, it wasn't just we weren't gonna be a 17-0 team. We had to, build every week, learn each other from the top down, and so we were able to do that. And I think it's a group of guys that, truly believe in each other. I'm sure you guys felt it around the building and in the media. We believed we were gonna come down here and win this football game, and I think that's huge for an organization that's going in the right direction. I think a lot of people counted us out, starting in August. Not a lot of people thought we'd be sitting here, playing here, today. Everyone figured we'd probably be out when we were 2-5. We weren't gonna, come back. We kept saying we believe in each other. We continue to say we believe in each other. I know every guy in that locker room still believes in each other. I think, obviously everything's gonna be different, and you never know where guys are gonna be, but I know, everyone in that locker room respects each other, loves each other, and loves how we're able to kind of quiet everything else besides, the guys in that locker room and, build together and, be a playoff football team. Just continue to, mold and mesh together. Obviously, you want to, keep the pieces together and, just build. And, obviously we'll see over the next few weeks and months, what those pieces are. And, once this team does, it's just continuing to, find that groove. I think we found it, November, December, and just to continue to, push that. Everyone remember the feeling that we have right now, and, take that in the offseason and work as hard as you can, and, just make yourself a better player first, and then you'll make the team a better team.
What was Nick's message, Alex? Obviously it's difficult, no one's happy, but what was his message to you guys after?
What I said, that the locker room stayed together. We believed in each other. It wasn't the outcome we wanted. Everybody knows that. It wasn't the way we wanted to start the game. It wasn't the way, we wanted anything to happen. But the way, we felt about each other, through the 19 weeks of this season and before that, just how much we respected and believed in each other, and everyone bought in. It wasn't there was no finger pointing at any point. I think, no matter how bad, people try to pull us apart. And I think that was his messages. Obviously today wasn't what we wanted it to be like, but, overall the journey, where we are, it's where you want to be going as a football team.
On defense, after the fumble punt, so you guys have had them on the 3 and out, it's 17-0, then the fumble punt. What did that do, I guess, for the defense at that point when you had to come back on the field?
We go over it all the time. Ignore it. You got to ignore those external factors. It's not the defense on the field. It's, we give up plays too. I think, when it is, whether it's special teams or the offense, we know that it's our turn to change that momentum, pick it back up, bring this team back. And that was kind of, we knew we had to do that today, and you want to get turnovers in that situation. You want to kind of, match 1 for 1, and, we weren't able to do that. But I think with that group, we're excited to go back out. It's on us. It's no different than, you give up a big player over the top, we, jog back down and, get back. And we're still in, obviously not great field position from where we were, but, they're not, in the red zone yet. So we still have an opportunity to force a punt, push them back and get the ball back to the offense.
That That was linebacker Alex Singleton. I thought something interesting he said, Fran, was about how there was no finger pointing this season, which we have discussed previously on the show, because there have been times that have been tough. You know, a lot of players and coaches have been asked about that game in Las Vegas. We all know what happened and how much of a gut punch that was, and how it was a little bit of a turning point for the Eagles in the back half of the season. And so I thought it was interesting to hear his perspective, especially as a captain, of how this locker room really rallied together and made that postseason run.
And I think that just speaks to the culture that this coaching staff has instilled here so far in year one in Philadelphia. And you go back to what those core values are that Nick Sirianni has talked about so much going back to when he was first hired. And one of those is accountability, right? That's something that he has talked about so often. And to me, when you talk about how guys aren't finger pointing in the locker room, you're going to have your spats on the sideline, things like that. That's normal, right, in terms of competition. But in terms of when you get afterwards, and you go through film, you go into the locker room afterwards, that doesn't spill over, and that's because of the culture that they have built.
And we hear from Alex Singleton, and we talk about TJ Edwards earlier, and we have to remember Davion Taylor, who was injured this season. But when we did see him play a bit, he showed glimpses. And so I'm excited to see when he gets healthy, his growth, especially when he has an opportunity to work with other linebackers like TJ Edwards.
Yeah, and we saw some really good flashes from Davion Taylor when he was healthy this season, both against the run and against the pass. Some of the things he did downhill in the box, that's what you're hoping to see from him as he continues to become more acclimated to the position and learn how to play in traffic with bodies around him. And that's something we saw big strides from him this year. We know he's athletic. You love seeing those plays sideline to sideline. I thought what we saw from the former third-round pick here this season downhill, that was a really good sign. You just want to get him back and healthy here for 2022.
And when you hear a guy like Alex Singleton talk up there and he talks about being captain, I sometimes forget he was named a captain, and not because of his lack of leadership on and off the field, but because of his story and his journey to get where he is. And I think it's so important to have guys like him who have really, really climbed the ladder day in and day out. You talk about a grind in the NFL. He is a living, breathing example of the grind, right? And to see him be named a captain this year, have success on the field, I think is just such an incredible story to watch unfold. And then, of course, be one of the first players to step up there today and take it all in the chin, just speak from the heart, and really reflect on what happened both today and the season as a whole.
Yeah, obviously, came over to the Eagles from the CFL, and that's a credit to the Eagles pro scouting department. And that's why when you get into this part of the calendar, right, we start getting into the early stages of the offseason, every transaction is important. So you got to follow every single one of those, whether it's guys that are signed to futures contracts, you get into undrafted you get into unrestricted free agency, you get into the draft, obviously post-draft, you get through the summer, the whole calendar year, all of those transactions, you could find talent, guys that are going to come in and help your football team.
And it's about that time now for the Eagles. Yep. As soon as they hit that offseason mark, it's kind of off to the races. For a coaching staff, or a front office, a general manager, this is not the time to go on vacation, right, Fran? Oh. It's off to the races, like I said, and you're going to start to get into all of that draft prep, combine prep, and then, of course, when free agency opens up, things can get a little wild, too.
Yeah, so the next couple of months obviously are going to be very busy. The college scouts, they have already been talking about this draft class for months and months and months, so that's not going to be new to them. What's going to happen now, though, is that, look, the All-Star game process, the Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, that's right around the corner. That's just in a couple of weeks, and so you're going to try and get your coaches as far up to speed as you can on some of the top guys at those games. Right now, for the next week, it's going to be kind of, for the coaching staff, it's going to be just kind of, let's go through the entire season, let's do some quality control. You're going to do all of that stuff. Obviously, the players are going to leave the building, so you're going to have some of those meetings, but in the meantime, you're going to have those coaches getting ready to watch some of those draft prospects. The combine just about a month and a half away. It's the end of February into the first week of March, which leads you right into free agency, right? So there's a lot that's going to happen here over the next few weeks, and it just starts really coming up here. You have the Shrine Bowl in Las Vegas, the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama. Those two events really kind of kick off the NFL draft process for a lot of fans, but I can assure you that it's something that the Eagles front office, the scouting staff, they've been working on this group since last May.
And Fran gets a little pep in his step when you start talking about the draft. I know this is your Christmas time, Fran. But like you said, every transaction that's made is important. We think about a lot of guys on this team who have been difference makers for the Eagles. Even Jordan Howard, right? Once a Pro Bowler. He was with Philadelphia for a little while. Then he was in Miami. Then he came back to Philadelphia. He was on the practice squad for the majority of the season. When he got that call up to the active roster, when Miles Sanders went down with his first injury, he was the spark to this rushing attack from the Eagles offense. So how important someone like Jordan Howard, a perfect example, bringing him back to Philadelphia, although on the practice squad, he paid off in dividends once he got that activation.
No question. And you look around, really on both sides of the football, we've seen guys that were kind of under the radar acquisitions. Maybe they were picked up off the waiver wire. They were signed from another team's practice squad. Boston Scott, a good example. Marcus Epps on defense, a good example, right? And so you could go really up and down the roster, and there are a couple of examples of guys that, hey, they weren't the big ticket free agent. They weren't a second-round pick in the rookie draft, right? But there are so many examples of so many players that are acquired in non-traditional ways. And that, again, it just kind of speaks to that entire player acquisition process. The offseason never really ends for the scouting staff. They are always working, trying to get this team more talented. What happens, though, is that it just ramps up now this time of year.
And when you think about depth, when you look at a roster and you think about the history of the health of the offensive line unit in Philadelphia, unfortunately, the past few years have been plagued with injury.
Yep.
How important that depth comes into play, we saw it perfectly this season, even today. Nate Herbig was ruled out, so Opeta took his place. And so you see these units really rely on depth, especially down the stretch. And if you have a team that's poised to make the postseason, that roster needs to be built tough to continue competing at such a high level if things go wrong or guys go down. Other players need to be ready to go.
And that's when you start talking about player development as well. So It's not just targeting players that are not in your building and trying to find who you want to bring in, but it's about developing those young players. When you get to the 90-man roster, how do you develop the guys that are number 54 through number 90? And that's what the spring, OTAs, you get into summer and mini camps, and obviously to training camp, that's a big part. And honestly, it was a big focus this summer. Ella, you were out there every day for training camp. You saw it, right? Was how often the team went into, and those young guys, they were either working on their own during practice or after practice. You had those developmental periods where those guys were working off to the side. A number of those players got playing time here this year, right? And so that's just something to watch here moving forward. That is clearly a point of emphasis for this staff, is trying to develop young guys on the back end of the roster. My guess is we'll continue to see that. Remember, this is the first full offseason for Nick Sirianni and this coaching staff. Last year, they're hired, they're bought in, they're trying to get caught up with everything, they're trying to install everything. Now you get your first full offseason, get in and try and develop the guys that are here.
Well, with that, we have Dallas Goddard now at the podium.
Early in the game, what was holding the offense back?
Say that again.
Early in the game, what was holding the offense back?
It was really just little things that we did. The first drive, we had a wrong call on a play. There was a little bit of miscommunication throughout some people. It was loud in there. Not everybody was on the same page. And, it's disappointing because we could have had some big plays early on. Great play calls that, as players, we didn't execute as good as we should have.
What play was the wrong call, and what happened?
There was one it was the first third down. We had a power sweep to the left, and we got a Y call where I was going down, and I should have been arcing for the blitzer. And, they kind of got a good defensive call into the play. If we would have blocked it correctly, it could have been a really big run by Jalen. But like I said, we just didn't have everybody on the right guys.
Had it been a while since you had some of those issues like that?
No, not really. Here and there you have it, but I think it was just one that, it was loud in there. They brought a blitz into our run, and, for everybody to see that is tough. You just wish you can have a few of those plays back.
Down, do you think some guys started pressing, or was not that?
No, I don't think so. Anytime you're down 14 or more, it's tough to stay to your game plan, stick to everything, because you do need to start getting chunk plays. You do need to get down there. But no, I don't think anybody was pressing too hard. We just kind of all stuck together, fought till the very end, and that's something that I'm very proud of that this team did.
Was there more of an emphasis to get out on a quick start? Was that sort of pressed during the week because you are playing an explosive offense and maybe the margin of error is small?
Yeah, obviously you want to get to a fast start every game. We stalled out, and you don't want to do that, especially not in the playoffs against one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game.
You've been through the playoffs 3 times and obviously didn't make the Super Bowl. How do you handle a letdown like process going into the offseason, and what do you do to kind of get your mind right and reflect on it?
It's tough. We started this thing back in July, and the journey that this team did, the amount of stuff that we went through, handled adversity, connected. It was a great year. It was a ton of fun. We had a great group. So anytime it ends just like that, it's tough. But it definitely is going to fuel me for this off season. I'm ready to get back to work and just be better next year. I think we got a great team, a great foundation. We got some young pieces, and I'm really excited to just get back to that grind, and I can't wait for next year to play with these guys again.
After playing this season with Jalen Hurts, what are some of your big takeaways about him?
Just the amount of passion he has for the game, the winner that he is. Having him back there, it never feels like you're out of a game. When we were down, it didn't matter. He came out there just like he did every other time, did his job, and he's a winner, that's for sure.
What was that like? Being able to run against pretty much everybody. What were they doing today that slowed things down?
Like I said, they got off to a lead, and then, I think we had some good runs. It was just something that was going to be tough to sustain with what the score was, with what we needed to get done.
What was the atmosphere like in the fourth quarter when you guys are down 31-0, but you're still going out there? What was it like in the huddle?
When you're down like that, the biggest thing is you just got to keep fighting. To lose a game 31-15 or whatever it is feels a lot better than losing it 30-0. That's just the fight that we have in this team. We're never going to give up. You've seen some crazy things happen in this league where it doesn't matter what the score is, how much time's left on the clock, anything can happen. And, we believe that. We still believed up until there was 0 seconds left on the clock that we had a shot to win the game.
What's the passing game? The passing game in particular, what does that need to do to take the next step?
We just need to continue to grow. I think that, I think we came a long ways this year from the start of the season until where we ended up. I think we grew a lot, but, it's just being able to find the open guys when they're open. And, as the people that are catching the ball, we have to be able to make plays that aren't always perfectly easy, and we can't leave anything out there.
One more for Dallas, emotionally, what is it like in that locker room right now?
It's tough. Like I said earlier, you put so much into a season. You have such high goals, high expectations. Not a person in that locker room had the belief that we were going to come into this game and this was going to be the last game of the season. So when it happened like that, it's hard. You put so much into it, and then it's just over like that. So it's just something that, just everybody in the locker room is just talking to each other, telling us how much you appreciate each other. And then, just saying we're going to be back and we got to get better. And that's ultimately all we can do.
Thanks, Dallas. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Ronnie, you guys, you 3 possessions in a row, you forced them to kick a field goal, and then you had 2 3-and-outs, and then they got a short field after the muff. What was the attitude of the defense going back out there on the field?
Get it done. At the end of the day, all we could do is control what we can control. And so our approach, our mindset was the same as it was that previous series, is get a stop, prevent them from scoring. And I think, obviously we failed to do that. I think I gave that touchdown up on that play. But, yeah, man, I think when you look at it, we just have to start fast. That was something that we've struggled with the past few games, and we've been able to overcome that. But when you face a team like Tampa, Super Bowl winning a team, and Tom Brady, you have to start fast, and every possession matters. And allowing them to start off, up 14 is hard to combat. And so I think that's just one thing, looking back on it without even looking at the film, I would say, we just need to start a lot faster than we did. Yeah, I think overall, I mean, we missed our goals, and this obviously hurts. Any loss, we wanted our season to continue on into the Super Bowl. That's what we played this game for. But there's a lot of positives to take away from this season. Being on the team last year, only having 4 wins, to coming back now and battling strong, man. The season was a roller coaster. It was ups and downs. We could have chosen a different way and, just tanked it and only won 2 games, right? We were at a point where we were 2-5, but that's credit to the players that we have here who continue to believe in one another and said that, man, like, our season isn't going to go this way. We're going to turn it around. That's what we did and allowed us to be in the position that we were in today. It's unfortunate that we lost, but there's a lot that you can hang your head on and walk away from this game with your head held high.
When you look at your record this season, there's a clear discrepancy between the way you guys played against playoff teams and non-playoff teams. How do you make up that gap?
Just have to learn from these sorts of games. And like I said, especially when you get into the playoffs, every possession matters, how you start, every single call, technique. It's the little things that make the difference. And, that's what you saw here today. I'm sure a lot of us, including myself, man, would like to have a lot of plays back that ultimately, affected the game. So I think we just look at this, build on it, and like I told the guys after, man, embrace this moment. Remember this feeling. Because, we'll be back. And so I think that's what we just have to do, learn from it and look forward to next season.
Even a couple weeks ago when you were addressing the team, you mentioned that you don't know who's going to be here, who's going to be back. I'm wondering how much you've been thinking about that kind of personally, about what you're going to be.
Yeah, that's real. The seats change every single year. My future here is unknown. And so this is not how I wanted it to end, if this is the last time for me. But at the end of the day, man, I'm proud of my guys, proud of what we've overcome this year and what we were able to do with this team. And so we just were appreciative of the moment and really cherishing the moment because this team will never be the same again. But I like how we fought. And I love those guys for continuing to fight all the way up until then.
Do you have any personal worries on how many more years you want to play in the NFL?
No, not at all. Just always grateful to have a job and just looking forward to next year, going into this offseason, attack it as I always do, get better, work on a lot of things. And, I'm just happy that I was able to make it out this season healthy. I think that's a huge step for me.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Jalen, we saw you walk in with a walking boot. How early did that injury affect you in this game, or did it affect you?
I think it's something we all know I've been battling with this last stretch of the games we've played in since I've been back. Regardless of how I feel, we didn't play good enough today. I didn't play good enough today, and it's kind of where it is.
Feel like you need surgery on it? What'd you see on the first interception, the one to Devontae?
Yeah, I want to say Devontae got open on the play, and I was expecting a look. The safety came off the hash. I couldn't get it up as soon as I wanted to. Got it up there a little late. Safety made a good catch on it on the sideline.
What held the offense back early in the game?
I think this. I want to say this. I think for us as a football team, this game does not define us. It does not define who we are. It does not define us at all. And we know all the different things that we've overcome. We know the environment that we built as a football team and the organization. With the youth we've had, and which I've talked about all year, and I mean, I know as a football team we'll be back. We'll be back, and this is a feeling that will kind of simmer in our hearts, simmer for us all. And with the youth on this football team, definitely coming back hungry.
Jalen, what are the different emotions that you're going through?
Those are my emotions right there. Kind of taking it for what it is. We're not used to this. Nobody enjoys this feeling, but I give a lot of credit to that football team we played because they're defending champs for a reason. They got great players for a reason. A lot of respect for their quarterback. The things he's been able to do for a while now. But I know for us as a football team, we always talk about controlling the things we can control. And today we didn't execute good enough. We didn't do our jobs good enough. I didn't do my job good enough. Communicating, doing the little things. I could have been better, definitely. And I think there are a ton of different areas where we can kind of shoulder this all as a team, but I take accountability for my actions and everything. But I know that we'll be back. I know the hunger that we have. I know the feeling of that locker room, and I know how we feel. And I think the one thing that's different from college, you got seniors. You got seniors, they're going. You got juniors, okay, they may declare, they may not. Well, you got guys on contracts in different phases of their life and their careers, and you don't know if they'll be back or not. And I think that's what made this team so strong. I think that's what made this team, through the highs and lows of the season, we've been together. We've been together. We believed in one another, and we stayed the course, and we just grinded every day. I look at this season, nobody expected us to be what we are, and here we are. So this doesn't define us, and I know we'll be hungry, and I know we'll come back better next year.
What do you think will be your lasting memory? From that larger perspective that you're just talking about, Nick, as you talked to the team yesterday, what does this particular team, mean to you now that you've been through it all with them?
Well, I see a ton of things. I saw a team full of different personalities. Saw a team full of different experiences, different ways of coming up in their backgrounds, and I saw that team come together. I saw a first-year head coach come in here and experience some highs and lows in his first year, but weather it and be tough as he is. And I admire everything about Coach Sirianni. I saw veteran guys that have been here, that have won Super Bowls, be some of the greatest leaders I've ever seen, and setting the right example, coaching, being a helping hand. And I saw growth as a football team. I saw this football team, play at a high level, play with a passion, play for each other. And I think that's something that I'm so proud of. It's something that I appreciate so much. And I appreciate the kind of standard that we've built in this year with all these new pieces. And I know for me, I look myself in the mirror and I tell myself, that first-year quarterback stuff, the first-year starter, it's over with. And I'm hungry. I'm hungry for what's to come. I'm hungry to do the things that need to be done.
What steps do you guys need to take to get to that next level? Did they kind of show you what you guys need to do?
Like I said, I have a lot of respect for that football team, their quarterback, the way they came out and played. And I think for us, we just need to keep doing. We need to continue to do the things that have gotten us to this point. It's all been an uphill climb for the Philadelphia Eagles, and we just need to continue to climb. We need to continue to stay together, continue to work, put the work in, and continue to have each other's backs. And I think I think the sky's the limit for us if we continue to climb. And I'll say it again, nobody wants to end their season this way. I hate this feeling. But you never waste a mistake. And I do a pretty good job of trying not to do that, trying not to waste a mistake. So just learn from it.
Go back to the same offense in 6 years, right? I mean, this is going to be your first time coming back. I mean, how beneficial do you think that would be for you to come back into the same offense for the first time?
Yeah, I think it'll do us a good benefit. I think it'll do the team a huge benefit. And like I said, we've had a lot of time to kind of learn from one another, grow, and we'll continue to do so.
As an offense, with the pieces that you have in place between yourself, Dallas, Smitty, the offensive line, how close would you say it is to putting it all together?
I'm not going to make any expectations for anything, but I know for us as a football team, the sky's the limit. And I'll reiterate, nobody likes this feeling. Nobody likes this feeling. Nobody likes this feeling. And we'll do the things we need to do so we don't feel this feeling again. And I think with the guys we have, especially in the youth, the young guys we have, we're hungry. We're gonna come back hungry, but this season was far from a failure, you know, and it's only a failure if you don't learn from it. So we'll take it as a lesson. I'll definitely take it as a lesson, and my third year starts tomorrow.
Thanks, John.
What were some of the things they were doing to take away the running game, specifically the read option with Jalen?
Just moving the front, edge pressure, disguising the coverages. They did a good job.
You were on the other side of the last game. Was it similar to what they did in that game, or did they change what in that game?
Yeah, I feel like they respected our run game and put together a good game plan to effectively stop us. So, yeah.
Jordan, did you feel any pressing out there? Obviously, Tampa's so explosive, and when they score, I think 3 times in the first 4 possessions, do you feel any pressing on the offensive side of the ball?
Do we feel any pressure? Pressing.
Yeah, saying we got to get things going.
Yeah, of course. It's terrible when you can't get the ball going and can't get any points on the board, and Tom Brady's out there just putting in touchdowns, and of course you get that feeling that you just want to, you keep reiterating next play, come on, we've got to get the points on the board, and it was frustrating, and trying to execute the plays and keep reading the defenses that they were putting out there. And so of course there was a lot of pressing of trying to be positive and trying to get the ball out there, trying to move the ball. But we just need to be better on execution.
I saw you standing there while Jalen was talking. What were you thinking, listening to him?
Can you say that again?
Sorry, I saw you standing there while Jalen was talking. What were you thinking while listening to him?
Breaks my heart. I mean, you see my QB to solely take responsibility and say that it's on him. It's not. It's on me. It's on every play that I messed up as well. Not giving him enough time. Breaks my heart seeing him up here trying to take the blame for everything. It's not true. Now, I know there were a couple plays there where I should have blocked longer. And it broke my heart just seeing him up here talking to you guys and saying that he needs to be better, and we all need to be better. But, I don't know. Just
one of Jason Kelsey's message to the team was last week about not letting the moment get to you or doing something outside your recovery zone. Did you feel like there were moments your first time being here that maybe you or other people you saw maybe were doing that in this situation because of worse mistakes?
To be really honest, I don't think the moment got too big for me. It just stuck to the same process that got me here, and making sure that I did my routines the same and not let the situation take control of me. As for anybody else or everybody else, I don't really know. I was just really focused on my job as an offensive lineman, making sure that the 5-wheel drive that I've told you guys about is clicking, and that's all I was worried about.
What do you think will be your lasting memory of this season, Jordan?
Probably the foundation that we've built with Coach Sirianni. I think he's a great and phenomenal coach that, you know, we all bought into his process, his fundamentals, and his roots analogy. Everybody ripped him, but, you know, well, we trusted in him and we invested ourselves, and, you know, we got to the playoffs, and I think my biggest takeaway probably be just that everything that we built, we're such a young team, and I'm not using that as an excuse because, you know, that's crap, but, you know, we're a young team with a young coach, and this is only the beginning. We're going to look back at this film and we're going to learn from it. We're going to make the corrections and, you know, carry that chip on the shoulder till next year.
Going back to Jalen, you saw him in the booth right now. What did you notice over the last month about how he handled that situation?
See, that's the thing. I don't even know he's injured. Like, you know, I was caught by surprise seeing him in the boot. I didn't know he was hurt. He's such a tough player, and just perseverance, man. He's all about the grit, you know, the will to win. That's him as a person. That's him as a player. And, you know, that caught me by surprise. I didn't even know he was hurt or playing hurt. I mean, all of us were, you know. So kudos to my QB.
Jordan, we hear the way you talk about Jalen. This is not the first time you've talked about him like this. What is it about him that draws you to him so much, that makes you care about him so much?
It's everything. Everything you want in a player. The will to win, the accountability that he takes. I mean, you guys see it. He sat here and was honest with you guys with what areas he needs to be better at. And I see that. I want to follow that dude. I know that dude wants to win. I know that dude wants to fix his mistakes. That's all I ask. That's all they ask of us. When I see my captain doing that, when I see my QB doing that, I want to do the same thing. And it's infectious for me. And that's the culture we're trying to build around here. Hold yourself at the highest accountability and keep pressing on and learn from your mistakes.
That's a wrap on player post-game press conferences. But for one final time, Fran did break down a defensive play from the game. So here's our final Ricoh review of the 2021 season.
So this week here on the Ricoh Review, we're going to take a look at this Eagles defense and how they were able to pressure Tom Brady in the first half. Going into the locker room, on those final 3 third-down plays, the Eagles were able to get 3 sacks. Now, the play we're breaking down is not a sack, but they do get off the field here on 3rd down, and I thought it was a great example of how the Eagles defense was able to dictate to the Tampa Bay Bucs. Now, what do you see here on 3rd and short? You see Fletcher Cox standing up at the linebacker level. He's moving around almost like a joker. Now, if you look at this, what this does to the opposing offensive line, they have to obviously factor in for Fletcher Cox rushing the passer, but you still have to factor all of these other green jerseys that's potentially coming. What you have here is Derek Barnett at right defensive end, Javon Hargrave, he's lined up at his normal defensive tackle spot. Ryan Kerrigan is standing up inside where Fletcher Cox usually is. And then you have TJ Edwards and Marcus Epps roll down potential rushers off the right side. So what this means for the Bucs is they have to slide their protection this way. Now the center, Ryan Jensen, he is sliding right, but he's still going to have eyes for Fletcher Cox. They're assuming Fletcher Cox is going to come. He's not going to drop back in coverage. But look what this does. As we let this roll, the Eagles are playing some match zone coverage on the back end, so they're going to exchange. But look at what this does. You now have Javon Hargrave and Fletcher Cox both one-on-one. What do we always say? What have we said all season long? Opposing offenses, you have to decide who you're going to double team. You can't double both Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave. You're going to have to leave one singled up. On this play, both players have single teams, and you have Ryan Kerrigan getting the double team because TJ Edwards and Marcus Epps, they both drop out in coverage. So the Eagles dictate to Tampa Bay that they want some single teams across the front. Fletcher Cox inside. He's able to get home quickly and impact this throw for Tom Brady. It's an errant throw. It goes incomplete, but a great job forcing some pressure to get off the field on 3rd down.
Well, Fran, that'll do it for us. Obviously not the way we wanted the season to end, but it's been a true honor doing the show with you and Ike Reese every week.
Ella, it's been a roller coaster of a journey, certainly this season. You get that the win in week 1 over Atlanta. The team starts 2-5, and then what they did down the stretch. It's been a fun season. I think there's a lot for Eagles fans to be excited about, and hopefully they are. And like I said, we'll be covering this offseason every step along the way. So make sure you don't go anywhere from PhiladelphiaEagles.com and all of the Eagles digital channels.
On to 2022 it is, Fran. Thank you so much. And to all the Eagles fans for tuning in, sticking with us week in and week out, we thank you so much. So for myself and Fran Duffy, as always, go Birds.